Hi, I'm Carice from Scofield Farm, and I'm very excited to have you here with me today because today I'm going to show you how to start tomatoes from seeds. And I hope to demystify this for some of you that haven't grown tomatoes from seeds before. Today I want to show you how to actually start your tomatoes from seeds. And I want to teach you in such a way that this could be something that you could even share with your kids. I homeschool my kids, and so I'm always looking for resources to help explain to them different skills they can have, they can use for their whole lifetime. And I involve my kids in our gardening as well. And so I'm going to take you step by step. I want to make sure you know all the different tools you're going to need to have, and I also want to show you how simple it is, because if you're anything like me and you do something new that you didn't learn as a child, but you're learning as an adult, it can be really intimidating. And so I want to break it down very simplistic. That way, if you are starting tomato seeds for the very first time, you are not intimidated. You're always welcome to ask any other questions in the comments, but I want it to be something simple enough that you can teach your children. They can start their own little garden and they can grow their own food and feel very empowered to do something that sometimes can be intimidating to us as adults. Before I start, I want to say there's no shame in buying starts from a big box store, a local nursery, a garden center, a local gardener. I did that for years. The reason I like to start tomatoes from seed is because it's actually really cost effective for the amount of tomatoes I like to grow. And tomato seeds last a really long time. Properly stored, you can grow tomatoes from just one pack of seeds for a really long time as a home gardener. It's really worth the investment of about $3 or $4. I'm going to take you through what kind of seed starter mix I use, how I actually plant the seeds, and the way I'm doing it this year is a little bit different than I did in the past. And then we'll have future videos down the line of what I do to pot them up to the next size, how I plant them out into the garden. I already have a video all about the different seed varieties that I chose to include in my garden this year. I will link to that because it's way too much info to give you on this video. Let's get started. First, I'm going to talk to you about the seed starter mix that I choose to use for starting my own seeds. I used to buy it at the store prepackaged, and then around the COVID era, there was shortages in a lot of the gardening centers. So I decided I was going to buy really big bags of the different key ingredients. That way I could mix my own seed starter mix and not be reliant on possible shortages. So I have a new recipe that I'm using for the tomatoes that's a little bit different than I used for peppers. For my peppers, I was mixing 3 equal parts of 3 key ingredients, which were peat moss, perlite, and vermiculite, and I added a little bit of worm castings to that mix. I felt like it just wasn't quite right. I even said in my video where I started peppers, it didn't feel quite right. I was still experimenting with my seed starter mix ratios. This one, I have about 6 parts of peat moss. I have 1.5 parts of vermiculite and 2 parts of perlite. I wanted to put some worm castings in, I forgot. I'm going to actually pot these up to the next size really soon, so it's okay that I don't have the nutrients in there. In fact, it's better for starting seeds not to have a lot of nutrients that could make the medium you're starting in heavy. Some people use potting mix. I don't, because I feel like that's a little heavy. It's a little more susceptible to possibly having different funguses and stuff, especially if it's something that isn't sterile. I would like to start things in smaller cups or trays and then move them up to bigger cups later where I can use a nice potting mix to give the nutrients then. You want a really light, fluffy mix so that the seeds can come through very easily. You don't want things with pieces of bark or wood that might actually keep your seedlings from coming up. So I try to keep it nice and light and fluffy. Instead of the peat moss, if you are concerned about peat moss, you could always substitute a good coconut coir. Both peat moss and the coconut coir need to be soaked beforehand because they expand and they're able to break up easier that way. And then you'll mix it all in really nicely, and you want to get it to about the moisture level of a damp sponge. You don't want it like dripping wet. You also don't want it dry because you want, the seeds to be encouraged to start, and they need moisture in order to start. So since we already covered having a good seed starting mix, and as I said, you can totally buy that at the store in their bags. I just like for high volume and for knowing I'm always going to have it accessible to mix my own. We're going to talk about what you're going to start the seeds in. Now this year I am using these little Dixie cups, and we drilled 3 holes in the bottom. You want to have drainage for anything that you start seeds in. Some people make little pots out of newspaper. I have started seeds in egg crates before. I've started seeds in toilet paper rolls before. I've started them in old different trays that you would have either salad or berries come in, the little clamshells that are plastic. I've started them also in these type of trays. I love these because they have a place for your finger to push out the bottom when you're cupping them up to a different size. The reason I'm not doing my tomatoes in these this year is because I'm trying to save a lot of space. These aren't terribly big, but I'm starting a lot of tomato seeds. Last year I put 1 in each of these cells. These cells are like a 1 by 1, and then I had to cup them up pretty fast. Well, this year I'm actually going to do what I did with my eggplant, and I'm going to put about 6 seeds in this little cup. This is about between a 4 and a 5 ounce paper cup. And then I will actually, again, pot them up to the next size pretty fast. But it will save me a lot of room to have all of my tomatoes in just one of the bottom watering trays instead of having several of these that I have to put on heat mats and under lights. So we talked about seed starting mix. We talked about what I'm actually going to put the seeds and the seed starting mix in. You want to have some sort of light source for the seeds you started. This could be a south-facing sunny window that you have that gets a lot of sunshine. I have started seeds in a sunny window. I've never found that my windows get enough sunlight to really adequately have them grow well and not get leggy. However, it is an option for people who have very sunny windows. I say south-facing because that is the angle that the sun moves in the northern hemisphere. If you're watching this in the southern hemisphere, someplace like Australia, you would do the complete opposite. You would put it in a north-facing window. But we're in California, so for us, the south-facing window gets the most light. You can also buy different lights to put your seeds under, and you can put your trays under lights that are like shop lights. They could be fluorescent. It actually does work. It doesn't have to be full spectrum grow lights. Although you're totally free to use those, they're just a lot more expensive, and a lot of them are rated to actually be able to sustain the flowers and grow fruit inside. If all you're doing is starting the seeds and then you're going to grow the actual plants outdoors, you don't need something quite as powerful as a high-rated grow light. Now what I choose to use is I ordered some shop lights that are LED from Amazon. Very simple lights. They're not super fancy. We chose LED because we're on PG&E power here. It is very, very expensive in California. Using LED lights was a little bit more investment up front, but because our power is so expensive per kilowatt hour, it actually, over the lifetime of us using it, will pay off better. If for you, you already have fluorescent lights, or you just want a cheaper upfront cost, they totally are fine and they work. If you're not using actually rated grow lights, there's 2 things that you want to make sure your shop lights, whether they're LED or fluorescent, have. What you would like is to have the Kelvin rating to be between 4,500 and 6,500. And all that really means is you want a bulb that is considered daylight, not warm. You don't want the warm bulb. Personally, I like warm bulbs in our house, in our living room. I like that warmer tone, but that's not good for growing plants. You want something that's the cooler tones, that is called daylight, or it's, as I said, between 4,500 and 6,500 kelvins. You want to make sure that the power of the light, the intensity, is between 1,500 and 2,500 lumens. The lights that I got off on Amazon were 2,200 lumens, and they were 6,500 kelvins. How I set them up is I put 2 of them on each shelf. So in some ways, it's actually like my plants have 4,400 lumens. And I like that because I feel like there's a little more intensity since I have a lot of plants under my lights. I know when I started my veggies from seed for some of the first times, and I realized that I wasn't getting quite enough light from my window, I was really intimidated to know which type of lights to buy, how do I set them up on the shelf. And so I don't want that to be intimidating for you. I want that to be made easy. So I want to show you what it looks like, how I hang them. You can hang them so many different ways. Some of our lights we have hung from paracord. Some of our lights we have, my husband made kind of a wooden contraption with a paracord that honestly is not my favorite way. The other way, we did it with string, and that's definitely was a tricky way. I would not recommend the string. Paracord is much better. Some people hang them from little chains. There's lots of ways that you can hang your lights from your shelves. Don't be intimidated, just get the lights and you'll figure out a way that works for you. Depending on how powerful your lights are, is how close you want to have them to your plants. I like to keep my lights about 2 to 4 inches from the top of my plants when they're actually growing. But when they're just seeds and they haven't germinated yet, I'll put a dome lid on top for humidity, and that will put the lights a little bit further away. So I have to keep a really close eye on when things germinate so that they don't get leggy inside the dome while they're reaching for that light that's a little bit higher than ideal. So we've talked about all the different things you need to get started to grow your own tomatoes from seed. Now let's actually plant some tomato seeds. I went ahead and I labeled all my cups. This is a blush. It's a new tomato to me. As I said, I have a video all about the tomatoes I'm growing. Not going to get into that today. But I'm going to do 6 seeds of each tomato. My ideal amount I want to keep for my garden this year is 2. And I have over 30 varieties I'm growing, so that added up is over 60 tomatoes I'm going to have in my garden. That's a lot of tomatoes. Because I want to ensure that I at least get 2 healthy ones, I'm going to start 6 seeds because I like to share my plants that I grow locally. I like to sell to other newer gardeners who are near me. I like to set up a little container garden for my mom every year to have in her courtyard outside her front door. I like to encourage people to try new things, to grow new plants. So I always want to make sure I have enough for myself, and anything that I actually have left over, I can share with my community to make gardening easier. I am in a shoulder immobilizer. I actually had surgery, so I'm learning how to start seeds pretty much one-handed. So I figured I could pour the seeds into this hand in the immobilizer and use the other to actually plant. So I think that is 6 seeds. So I'm going to put the seeds a little bit spaced out from each other. Then I'm going to cover them with a really light layer of seed starting mix. One thing you want to know about starting tomato seeds and any other seeds you might start is you want to actually plant them about the depth of twice their width. Tomato seeds are really small, so you don't have to plant them very deep. I'm going to take a little bit of seed starting mix and sprinkle it on top, just so they're covered. And then I'm going to spritz in with a spray bottle a little bit of water on top so that those seeds are moistened and they can start working their magic. Spritz it in. I don't want it to be soaking wet, I just want it to be dampened. And that's it. Pretty simple, right? I'm going to do this with each cup, and then I'm going to show you how a kid can start this. It's so easy. Really, anybody can start tomato seeds. thinking of something I wanted to encourage you with, and it's that seeds want to grow. The whole reason tomatoes actually produce any fruit is so they can continue their lives by dropping fruit that will later have their seeds grow into plants in the future. We've had times where there were cherry tomatoes or different things that drop in our garden, and the next year we come out, we find a bunch of different little tomato plants. Seeds want to grow. And so even though we're helping them along indoors, we're purposely planting them, just remember that they're on your side. They do want to germinate. They do want to make more plants. Sometimes you'll have some seeds not germinate, and there could be a variety of reasons why. Sometimes it's that the seeds are old. Tomato seeds last a long time, like I said, but other times maybe they needed more warmth. Tomatoes like their soil to be somewhere between 70 and 90 degrees, which is why it's very helpful to have a heat mat. I have germinated tomatoes without a heat mat. You don't have to have one. It will just take a little bit longer. They want to grow. They want to germinate. And so I want you to know that it's on your side, that it wants to produce a new plant. If for some reason the ones you're trying to grow don't germinate, I have replanted things myself many times. In fact, this year, some of my favorite peppers did not germinate the first time. So I went ahead and I replanted those seeds. I put them on the heat mat. I put them under a dome lid again, did all the things of spritzing them down, watching them to see when they germinated. And I'm so glad I did, because now I'm gonna have a couple of those specific pepper varieties that didn't germinate the first time. So don't be intimidated. The tomatoes are on your side. They actually do want to grow. You can do this, even if you've never done it before. Another thing to keep in mind is you want to start your tomato seeds inside about 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. You're going to be able to find that out if you look up last frost date and enter your zip code. It should bring up the Farmer's Almanac website, which will get the average last frost date for your area. Okay, now I want to show you how my daughter can plant these seeds, because really it doesn't need to be intimidating. Anybody can plant tomato seeds. So just take one seed at a time, space them out in the top of the cup.
What cup? This one?
This one right here. Just drop them in, and then we will cover them up with a little bit of seed starter mix, and we'll spritz them in. Very good. Maybe put one in the middle. Bit of this on top. Okay, and then I'm going to let you spray it in with a spray bottle. Just a couple spritzes, not a lot. Hey, now my 6-year-old is even going to start seeds. I'm going to put some seeds in my hand. Well, this is very tricky. Okay, and then you're going to pick them up out of my hand, and you're going to space them out in the cup. Maybe right in the middle. Very good. Okay, we're just gonna put a little layer, very light layer. I know, we don't want to knock it over. Okay, very light layer, very lightly. We don't barely need any. Like that's even a little too thick. Okay, yes, sprinkle it on. Just barely sprinkle it on. Okay, and here is the water bottle. Just a couple spritzes. You don't need to be super close. You just want to get it just overall a little bit damp.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think that's good. All right, very good work. I actually find seed starting to be super inspiring and an exciting part of gardening for me, because it's always so amazing to me and mind-blowing, the miracle of life that comes from a seed. I'm a person of faith, and so it's a reminder that God gave the seed everything it needs to live in this tiny little package. And it's also a reminder that life really wants to continue and go on. I love checking my seedlings to see if they've germinated. It's seriously one of the most awestruck kind of parts of gardening that I have found. Growing food is awesome, but starting seeds is just something special. I also find seed starting and gardening in general to be something that helps my mental health, that helps inspire hope, because it gives something to look forward to in the future. Even recovering from a surgery where a lot of my days seem very the same, there's not a lot that I can do of my normal life and look forward to. I have the miracle of life coming from a seed to look forward to, the anticipation of the plants that it'll produce, and the food that will come from the plants. I think growing a garden, I think starting seeds is really something that inspires a lot of hope in people, and it's super gratifying. Okay, I have all of the seeds planted. Now I'm going to do my last step, which is sprinkling vermiculite on the top. Vermiculite on the top helps absorb extra moisture, and it actually helps prevent damping off, which is caused by fungal and over moist cold temperatures. It's a way that your seedlings, they'll come up, they'll germinate, and then they'll suddenly get limp and die. And so to avoid that, we do want to make sure there's not too much moisture just on the very top of the soil. Light is let through vermiculite, so they'll get plenty of light. It's also a very good idea to have a fan to get some air circulation. That also helps prevent damping off, and it helps strengthen the plants before they go outside. I'm glad that you joined me. I hope that this is helpful in starting your own tomato seeds. If you have any other questions, please put them in the comments, and I will try to answer them or make a video to answer them if it's stuff that's future. I want to show you how I pot these up to larger cup sizes. I have a certain method that I use, and that will be a future video, so be watching for that. And I'll also show you how I plant them out in the garden, how I like to support my tomatoes, all of the different steps. We're gonna go through it together, so be sure to follow along if this is the type of content that is helpful and that you enjoy. Also, if this was helpful to you, I'd love if you would push the like button. I know that may seem silly, but it helps more people that could use this content be able to see it in their feed. And I will see you very soon. You want to have some sort of light source for your seeds that you started. You also want to have now we're just gonna lightly, just barely, ooh. Oh no, we love the seeds. No! This is one of my favorites. This is really